Welcome to the Friday edition of Juan's World, and today I'm going to continue the discussion of enchantment that I began on Friday, interrupted by my Tuesday cooking class. And on Friday last I talked about the nature of enchantment, that is the idea that the world is inhabited not only by physical entities, but is also the home to the supernatural, and the supernatural could be in the form of ghosts, fairies, goblins, demons, fairy godmothers, the world of magic, the world where somebody taps a wand and a pumpkin turns into a carriage, and so forth. That enchanted world, according to Max Weber, largely disappeared under the onslaught of the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, and ultimately the Industrial Revolution, where people began to put their faith more in physical science than in magic and religion. And so if they had a problem, they sought a scientific practitioner, not a magical or religious one. Well, we have to be a little careful here, because the magical and the religious have not sort of magically gone away. Say magically. They haven't just disappeared because of the arrival of rational science. In fact, one could argue just the opposite. One could say that the arrival of rational science has actually put up a strong resistance in certain quarters who want their enchantment. But there are also a very large number of people who have strayed well away from old practices, magical, religious, and so forth, and clung on to physical science. So I want to look at this a little further today, and in particular I want to look at a movement which I will call Re-Enchantment. That is the move by some people to bring enchantment back. Now, I'm not talking about the people who have been religious all along, the people who believe that Genesis 1 is an accurate description of the founding of the world or the universe. I'm not talking about those people. They never got touched by disenchantment. I'm talking about the people who were persuaded by rational science, and who one way or another became agnostic or atheist, and now aren't so sure and are missing the value of enchantment. So let's move into that subject. Okay, let me begin by talking about atheism, and particularly what I believe people mean when they say they're atheists, versus a more technical approach. Now, atheist technically comes from Greek, a meaning not, and theos meaning God. So atheist, not a not God person, a person who doesn't believe in God. Well, there are many brands of atheism. You cannot believe in the God that you are presented with in a particular religion, or you cannot believe in the existence of any gods. And I would venture to say, although I haven't spoken to people particularly as individuals about this, my speculation is that most people who call themselves atheists are saying, I reject the God that was described to me when I was growing up. It doesn't mean that they necessarily know anything about any other God, like so that if they're raised in the Judeo-Christian tradition, that is either they're Jewish or Christian or some combination, then they don't believe in the God of the Hebrew and or Greek Bible. And if they're raised in the Islamic tradition, they don't believe in the God of the Quran. And most of them probably don't know anything about the God or gods of Hinduism and Buddhism. I know, for example, from Kipling's poem Road to Mandalay, that he describes the God of the woman that he's attracted to as the Buddha. Well, Buddha is not a God, he's a man. And that's just a misunderstanding of the nature of the supernatural in Buddhism and by extension in Hinduism and so forth. So people who say they're atheists usually are saying that they don't believe in the God that has been described to them. Not that they don't believe in any God, but then there are some people who have thought about it a lot and who I would call true atheists. And true atheists, I would say, are people who do not believe that there is such a thing as the supernatural realm, that the only realm that exists is the physical realm. There is no soul, there is no spirit, there is nothing that is describable outside of the physical realm. Okay, now that's fine, as long as we understand that that is also a principle of faith, because it's not something that can be demonstrated empirically through physical science. All fine, no problem. But most of the people who call themselves atheists don't go that far, because they haven't thought that deeply. When you start thinking about the concept of self, for example, not just who am I, a kind of adolescent sense of what can I make of myself, what is my essence, etc., etc. No, but a much deeper question of what does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean to be self-aware? How does it happen? Is it no more than the electrical, chemical functioning of your brain? Is your brain just firing off neurons and bathing in certain chemicals and reacting in certain ways, and you are responding, that you are no more than a very, very complicated machine? I think very few people actually believe that, although there are certainly some that do, some very famous philosophers who do, and people involved in neuroscience and artificial intelligence. They do exist, but they don't exist among ordinary YouTubers because they're not aware of the complexities of the arguments. They're not aware of how complicated it is to be what is sometimes called a physicalist, a person who believes that everything is the result of physical actions of particles, forces, and so forth. Now, one of the first things that you usually end up getting rid of when you take a physicalist position is the notion of free will. Because free will requires there to be an agent separate from all of this other physical stuff that is calling the shots. But the physicalist is saying, no, it's the physical world that is making everything happen, that it's a matter of determinism, or reducing everything to determined activities, like not like exactly like billiard balls, but not dissimilar either. That is, you hit one billiard ball, it hits another, that you can predict what's going to happen to the ball that was hit based on the motion, the direction, the speed, the spin of the initial ball. You can tell what's going to happen to the ball it hits, and then if it hits another one, you can predict, and so forth. And so if you just sort of multiply that billions and trillions of times, then in theory you can come up with an explanation for every action that takes place in the universe. Well, most of us have a kind of gut reaction, or we would call it an intuitive dislike of that point of view. Because if you start robbing us of free will, then we end up being no better off than Puritans in the Calvinist era, believing in predestination. That it doesn't matter what I do, I'm predestined to heaven or to hell. And in a determined physicalist universe, that's one of the things that, well, some of them anyway, are saying, is we have no free will. That we're just playing out the physical reactions of particles, forces, and so forth that began at the beginning of the universe and is just playing itself out. Well, that's kind of hopeless, really. That means that we can't do anything for ourselves by choice, by free will. And I would say that the vast majority of us intuitively find that point of view distasteful. But we also find the idea that science governs everything to be sometimes delightful. You know, sometimes, wow, we can put people on the moon, or we can imagine sending Voyager 1 and 2 all around the solar system and taking photographs. We can imagine colonizing Mars. That's pretty amazing. We've got computers that will do amazing things. They'll play games, can even play games with us. If we like chess but we don't have a partner, we can spend a few bucks and buy a game that will play chess with us and will beat us. Most of the apps on the market now can beat a grandmaster, but the good thing is that you can set your level and still have a good game and still win now and again. So the scientific world has certain wonders and certain advantages, but it lacks the sheer awe of magic, religion, God, as conceived, certainly in the Hebrew Bible, of this all-encompassing, all-knowing, all-powerful entity. And science doesn't have that capacity. So some people have I don't know if it's always a conscious yearning, but some kind of longing for something that is not quite so mundane as science. even though science has a lot of capacity. And so, of course, we have science fiction and fantasy movies, and they can do amazing things. We can fly around galaxies, suddenly exceed the speed of light. Not a problem. Pull a lever, ping, and you're off faster than the speed of light. In Star Trek, warp speed is the speed of light, so warp 2, twice the speed of light, warp 10, I don't know. I don't keep track of it all, but just imagine what happens if you travel at the speed of light, if you colonize galaxies all over the universe. It gives us a kind of fictional enchantment. Now, I'm not going to say that it is a different kind of enchantment from the enchantment of Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and so forth, because I wouldn't be surprised if the people who told those stories didn't actually really believe in their magical powers either. They were escapist fantasies of a certain sort. And our fantasy movies and science fiction movies are also escapism, and we understand they're not real. What I'm talking about when I talk about re-enchantment is finding a new way to think about the enchanted world that isn't fantasy, that is every bit as real as physical science. And the area where that seems to be most promising is the area of consciousness. I've talked about consciousness before in previous videos, and so I don't want to repeat myself. But I do want to tie in the concept of consciousness with the concept of enchantment, because there seems to be a degree of overlap to me. That is that modern science is taking a somewhat different approach to consciousness than has been made in past centuries. And I will say centuries plural without necessarily meaning that we're going to go all the way back to Aristotle, but we'll certainly go back to Descartes, go back to the 17th century, go back to the Enlightenment, when there was a first glimmer of understanding of what consciousness was. And we're still very much in the dark, but we're beginning to realize that consciousness is not just a property of humans. That is, we are conscious, we're sentient, sometimes used, we're self-aware. And modern physics is just beginning to grasp the notion that everything, people, animals, microbes, atoms, rocks, trees, whatever, have a level of consciousness. Now, it's not the same as ours. It's not necessarily a kind of human self-awareness. It's not like we're dealing with the Ents in Lord of the Rings, that, you know, trees that are conscious, that periodically can like become almost human and interact and all that kind of thing. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the idea that everything has its own level of consciousness based on what it is. And the hardest part, the part that has not been resolved by anyone yet, is how consciousness can reside in parts of a system, and that consciousness is different from the consciousness of the whole. So that, for example, I have a consciousness, but so does my heart, and so does my liver, and so do my kidneys, and so do my muscles. They all have, in their own way, an awareness of what they have to do. The muscles know they have to contract, the liver knows it has to filter products of digestion, the heart knows it has to pump, my lungs know they have to exchange oxygen, and so forth. They all contain their own conscious knowledge, but my selfhood is not conscious of what they are conscious of. Like, I don't know how to pump blood. I don't know how to exchange oxygen. I don't know how to fight off disease. My immune system does, but I don't. But somehow I'm the product of all of those kinds of knowledge. And even more important for me as an anthropologist, when people come together, their consciousness interacts to create something bigger than just 2 or 3 or 5 or 100 consciousnesses, horrible plural, consciousnesses in the same place. But they merge together to create an agency that is different from the individuals. So the mob can decide to do things, protest or attack or defend or whatever, can feel strength because of the combined consciousness of everybody. And we don't really quite understand how that works. In fact, I would say that we don't understand it at all. We can describe it. We've got some empirical evidence about how it works, but not why, and not how we can manipulate it and so forth. Those things are not very well understood at all. So those are the areas where I think we have some promise in terms of re-enchantment, in terms of thinking again about possibilities of consciousness, possibilities that the entire earth is a conscious entity, that all of us, and not just all of us, but trees and rocks and birds and all the rest of it, are all part of a gigantic earthly consciousness. All right, well, I'll leave it there for the moment. I will pick it back up. Not sure if I'm going to cook on Tuesday. I haven't decided yet. Depends on what I do over the weekend. But for now, please tell your friends about these videos. Please like, please subscribe. And one way or another, I will see you on Tuesday. Bye.